right, today's video is Raid Shadow Legends feature preview, the Hydra. So I haven't seen this at all. This is going to be pretty much kind of like a live reaction, I guess you could say, because I haven't seen this. We get to watch it together. So let's check it out.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new update preview. Today we're tackling Hydra battles, and there's a whole lot to talk about, so I'm just going to get into it. We'll start with Hydra rotations and the general structure of the battles. First, you'll be taking 6 champions instead of 5, lots of extra power. Second, once a champion has been used in a battle against the Hydra, you won't be able to use them again against this boss until the weekly reset. You get 3 battles a week, so get creative. Now, let's talk about the Hydra. It has heads. You'll be fighting 4 at once, and each head will be unique, no duplicates. But while there are only 4 heads in the fight at a time, there are 6 heads total, and the other 2 heads are waiting in the sidelines. Every month will be a new Hydra rotation. It'll switch out each head's affinity and change the 4 starter heads. And when we have more than 6 heads to choose from, it'll also mean leaving some heads out of the rotation entirely. Okay, fighting the Hydra. When a Hydra's head HP hits 0, they're decapitated. This causes a decapitation effect, a special bonus that's unique based on which type of head you killed. Once a head's been decapitated, it leaves behind an exposed neck, which can still take damage. Lots of damage, actually, so hit it with everything you've got.
Looks really good.
The Hydra grows back a new head. Exposed necks are immune to buffs and nearly immune to poison debuffs, but everything else works just fine. Which head grows back is determined randomly. On easier difficulties, it'll probably be the same head you killed. But remember, there'll always be another 2 heads, and there's a chance when an exposed neck grows a fresh head, it will be a different head than the one you originally killed. You'll need to improvise. Regardless of which head grows back, it will have a new Serpent's Will buff until the end of its first turn, reducing all damage it takes by 75%. All right, next up, let's talk about consumption. The Hydra eats people. Every so often, one of your champions will be marked with the mark of the Hydra.
So I'm saying, be careful.
Later, one of the heads will straight up eat the marked champion. However, it'll take a few turns to digest them. Deal enough damage to the head while your champion is being digested, and it will vomit them back up.
Ew.
Take too long, though, and your unlucky champion will be consumed. That means they're dead, no revives, completely gone from battle. So if a champion gets eaten, hit the head responsible hard and fast if you want your guy back. All right, that's the Hydra in general. Let's talk about those 6 heads. First up, the head of Decay. Its default attack, Agonizing Jaws, targets whichever champion has the least HP, and puts a heal reduction debuff on them. It will also remove all debuffs from its fellow heads with Speed of Decay. Its almighty Decay passive skill also messes with your healing. Any champion who gets healed will also have their max HP reduced by 15% of the heal, up to 75% of their max HP. Lastly, it can bring up a life barrier using its Rotten Ward skill. This cleanses the head with the least HP of all debuffs, then gives it a shield-like temporary HP barrier for several turns. This barrier can't be bypassed
or removed. This looks crazy.
Damage the head to break the barrier, or the head will fully heal itself. As a bonus, if you do break the barrier first, it will stun the head it was protecting. The Head of Decay's decapitation effect, the thing that happens when its HP hits 0, is a very handy heal. Your champions heal 30% of their HP, then recover half the max HP destroyed by almighty Decay. Lastly, the Head of Decay has a passive that reduces all incoming AoE damage by 10% for all Hydra heads. Every Hydra head has this passive, so you can expect all your AoE damage to be reduced by 40% or more. We'll get to that.
Oh boy, okay.
Secondly, the Head of Torment. This one is a bit more straightforward. Its default attack has a chance to place a fear debuff on the first hit. Then
and they did such a good job making all of them look unique, too. Each head looks unique. They did a great job.
Curse Storm is an AoE that hurts way more if your champions are under a bunch of debuffs. Taking it down can be complicated. The Head of Torment automatically applies an unblockable, irresistible, true fear debuff on champions that attack it. Unless they have a perfect Veil buff active, bring Cloakers, or a champion that can cleanse debuffs to deal with this. The Head of Torment's decapitation effect cleanses all fear and true fear debuffs from your team, and gives 2 random champions a perfect Veil buff for 2 turns. Next up, the Head of Blight. It has 2 AoE attacks. Its default, Dripping Jaws.
This is pretty exciting. They did such a good job and put so much work into this.
With a high chance of putting a leech debuff on top of that.
Crazy.
Its other skill, Leeching Blight, also applies a 5% poison for a few turns, and if the champion has leech on them, immediately activates all poison effects. Toxic. That's not all. Its third skill, Blinding Smog, applies a new buff called Poison Cloud on its fellow heads, which makes all incoming hits count as weak hits and blocks all poison damage the heads would receive. Upside, this head is weak to fire. It takes double damage from HP burn debuffs, and if a head is under an HP burn debuff, it won't be protected by the Poison Cloud. Best of all, when you kill the head of Blight, its decapitation effect deals huge damage to any other heads under HP burn.
It decapitated another one.
Pro tip, you can use the Affinity Breaker set to bypass the Poison Cloud 20% of the time. Now, let's look at the main tank the Hydra can bring to the field.
Head of Suffering.
The Head of Suffering. Its basic attack is simple. Crippling Jaws lashes out at all your champions and puts a weaken debuff on them, as long as they don't already have Strengthen. Its second skill, Thirst for Pain, puts an ally protection buff on all other heads, puts a reflect damage buff on itself, and provokes your champion with the highest crit damage. It basically tries to rob you of your main nuker. Finally, Share Sufferings is where the Head of Suffering gets its name. It places a new debuff, Pain Link, on one of your champions, which causes them to take 15% of all the damage that the Head of Suffering takes. Fortunately, this debuff can be cleansed or countered with block damage or high resistance. Its passive skill, Almighty Suffering, increases all heads' resistance by 50. And, even worse, its AoE damage reduction boost is 30% instead of 10%. While this thing is alive, AoE damage is reduced by up to a crippling 60% if you include the passives from the other three heads. Once you decapitate it, though, your entire team gets a shield equal to 30% of their max HP, which can seriously come in clutch if you time it right. Next up is the thief of this Viper Pit, the Head of Mischief. Its default attack, Thieving Jaws, targets the champion with the most buffs, then steals all those buffs along with 50% of the champion's turn meter. Its second attack, Spoils of Mischief, spreads the pilfered buffs onto all other heads, setting their durations to 2 turns. Killing it can be quite the challenge. With its Almighty Mischief passive, the Head of Mischief has a 75% chance of redirecting any incoming attack to another Hydra head. The only way to prevent that is placing a Hex debuff on it, or try to rely on AoE attacks,
so we're talking about like hexes and veils, right?
Though the damage will be reduced, potentially by a whole lot, depending on the other heads you're fighting. Still, it's not hopeless. Your champions can resist the Head of Mischief stealing their buffs, and they can remove those buffs from the Hydra if they get spread around, or before they get spread in the first place. You can also put block buffs on this slithering thief, so even if it does go for your buffs, it will just remove them instead of stealing them. The Head of Mischief's decapitation effect causes all other heads to lose 100% of their turn meter, which is awesome. Last of the heads is the Hydra's main damage dealer. You won't like the Head of Wrath when it's angry. It's always angry. Its default attack is pretty standard, hitting all champions hard and putting a 50% decrease attack debuff on everyone. Either block, cleanse, or resist that debuff if you want to keep your damage up. Then the Head of Wrath does something unusual. It makes itself a target. Its second skill, Furious Roar, provokes your entire team for a turn and buffs itself with a 50% increase attack. Sadly, taking damage is how this head deals damage. Every time it gets hit, it builds up stacks of its Vengeance counter. When it has 15 stacks, it activates Almighty Wrath, which gives it a block debuffs and reflect damage buff. Then a new super strong buff called, you guessed it, Vengeance, which quadruples its attack power for a turn. Then it hits you with all that quadrupled strength, and it still has Vengeance for its next turn on top of that. It won't build up stacks on its counter while Vengeance is up, but the downside is that the head will probably kill you with it. You'll want champions who can deal massive damage with single-hit skills so they can minimize the number of stacks they add to the Vengeance counter, as well as healers or buffers who can put your entire team under block damage. The Head of Wrath's decapitation effect deals heavy damage to the rest of the Hydra. That damage is significantly increased if you can kill the Head of Wrath while it's under the Vengeance buff. And that's it for today, folks.
Wow.
Whew. Remember, the Hydra's heads might be dangerous on their own, but it's the combos that really make it deadly. It should be a tough and fun challenge, but the rewards will be worth it. We look forward to seeing how you tackle this new clan boss. Until then, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content.
Wow. Okay. So what do you guys think of that? That is pretty much a first look at what's happening with the Hydra. Now, I'd seen some questions in the channel, people asking if we've had a chance to fight the Hydra and test it. The answer is no. Because people can't behave, nobody is allowed test server access with the Hydra. Because people can't behave themselves. So the answer to that is no. No one's tested it. No one's been able to go in there play with it other than the game devs, okay? Now, I know there's a couple questions that came up. One of them was talking about it being too difficult for people to play against. Now, what you have to notice is, let me back this up a little bit, like right here. So what we're already going to see here is this looks like clan boss, okay? Where there's different difficulties: easy, normal, hard, you know, brutal, nightmare, ultra nightmare. So it looks like as long as you meet the minimum level requirement in the clan, it looks like you can still go in and play. All right. Because if it stays this way, what is that? 110 here, you know? So I don't know if that's going to be the actual amounts it's going to be or not, but it looks like there is going to be different degrees of difficulty on the Hydra. Very similar to how Clan Boss was. Now, is Mythralla fragments going to be available everywhere? We don't really know. So what we do see, though, is we do see that there's clan experience. There's also clan gold. We knew that was going to happen. And then new accessories as well, too. So really interesting. I think it's really going to be... Yeah, well, it depends if you get 2 chests or not, though, too, right? Maybe. And it depends how often fragments come in. This is the thing, is we're going to have to see what the variables are. You know, how often are you getting fragments? You know, how many chests can you guys get? I think that's really what matters. Can you just buy Mythralla fragments? I don't know. Maybe give them time. Maybe you'll be able to. All right, here's Mythralla, and she looks amazing. Look at that. She even has snakes for a tail. That is just really cool. They did such a good job with her. She looks so good. I know, you guys. Her art is amazing. Look at the snakes. They're actually moving. That's her tail. The wings are beautiful. Like, they did such a good job with like the scaling, and I don't know, I'm really impressed. Their art never ceases to amaze you. She looks way better than the promo champ. Yes, like 100 times better. Ramanatsu, is that you? Doesn't she look beautiful? So good. That weapon, like the tail has snake heads. Yes, look at that. Look, they're snakes and they're moving. You see them? The snakes are actually moving. They're snake heads. That's her tail. She's got 2 snake heads on her tail. Yeah, I did ask. First thing this morning is I asked if there's lore for her, if there will be. I'm like, please, for the love of God, give me lore for Mythralla. Beautiful though, right? Like this. Oh, look at this. Look at all like the details. Are they like praying? That's so funny. Like all the details that went into this, just gorgeous. Such a pretty looking champ. They did a really, really good job. Next cosplay, actually, people were asking me to cosplay her for Halloween next year, so we'll see. Okay, so Mythralla, like we said, she's going to be a Void Legendary Support Champion for the Dark Elves. Her A1 is called Libation of Pain. Attacks 2 times at random and does a poison. A2 is called Sigil of Toxic Glory. Attacks all enemies with a hex and places increased defense and increased attack on all allies. Briming Silex removes all debuffs from allies and places a strengthen and shield buff on them. And their passive is called Gaze of Stone. Whenever she's attacked by an enemy under a hex, has a chance of applying Petrification, which we just talked about what Petrification was for the debuff. Whenever an ally is attacked by an enemy under hex, has a chance of also applying Petrification. Also increases this champion's resistance. The amount by which it is increased is equal to the amount of accuracy this champ has. But guys, there's so much in here. Like even when we're going back watching about all these Hydra heads, it's crazy. They put so much effort into it. And I have to say, I love the UI of this. I think this looks so good. This reminds me of, like, I used to love World of Warcraft, like raids and WoW, and it reminds me so much of it. I really like it. The Hydra's in game and the map looks fantastic, as you guys see this here. So still located where the clan boss icon is, but look what they updated the artwork, which looks amazing. So now we have the Demon Lord, but we also have the Hydra. And what's fun about this is when we look here, look at what they did. Like this is cool. It says Creator of Eternal Fire, which has the Demon Lord. Then we have Great Serpent Temple, which is holding the Hydra. And then here's the Great Void. Again, leaving us room for one more clan boss down the road. This is really exciting here. So if you guys hadn't looked at this before, hadn't noticed, isn't that exciting? The Hydra update has happened, but the actual Hydra rotation's not gonna start until December 8th, and there's a 5-hour period. It's gonna start kind of within different times for each clan, but it should be within this period of time. The Hydra is gonna be the second clan boss and only available to clan members at level 45 and above, which I think is fair. The Hydra is gonna take 6 heads into battle, but you're only going to fight 4 at once. This is gonna be called the starter heads, and they deal as much damage to those heads as possible, and we increase our score. So it makes sense. It seems like it's gonna be a lot like clan boss, right? The idea is just to do as much damage as you can, and then you'll be able to collect a chest base off of that. If you deal enough damage to a single head during a battle, you'll chop off the head and you'll expose the neck, giving you a great opportunity to boost your damage. But you need to be quick because another head's gonna grow back. Makes sense, that's why it's the Hydra, right? During each battle, the Hydra's gonna be trying to eat your champs. First, the Hydra's gonna mark a champ, then it's gonna gobble them up, and you're gonna have a short period of time to try to free your champ. If you don't, your Hydra is dead. And since there's gonna be an in-game guide for more info on each Hydra head as well. Monthly rotation. The Hydra's monthly rotation defines the head selection and each head's affinity and how is it going to work. The Hydra works in monthly rotations and weekly reset. Every month, 4 of the Hydra's total available heads are chosen as starter heads. The 2 remaining will be chosen as substitutes for that month. Each head's gonna be assigned an affinity, and in each Hydra battle that month, the 4 starter heads and 2 substitutes and affinities are going to be the same. Any info on Christmas Fusion? No. We're doing this first, and even this they haven't given us info on because people can't behave. So, weekly cycles. Players will fight the Hydra across weekly cycles. You need 1 key each time, and you're gonna get 3 keys. Hydra resets every Wednesday, same time, so that's why they're starting it on Wednesday, so that'll be a Wednesday thing. If the Hydra is damaged but survives, each contributing clan member receives 1 chest according to damage they dealt. If the clan defeats the Hydra, your reward is doubled. So again, it's like the clan boss, right? Each champion can only be used in 1 Hydra battle per week, so you need to utilize your entire collection if you want to master the Hydra. Clan members must work together to deal damage to Hydra, again, like clan boss stuff. Rewards, Hydra chests, and artifact sets. Fighting the Hydra in higher difficulties gives you access to best Hydra chests. Hydra chests contain clan resources such as gold and experience, but also the only way to get stone skin and protection artifact sets, 2 new sets. Both stone skin and protection artifacts are special in a couple ways. They're both variables, meaning you gain extra bonuses depending on how many of them you equip, and they're available in mythic rarity, rarer and stronger than a legendary. Stone skin, you can equip anywhere from 1 to 6, and you're gonna get plus 4 40 resistance, plus 8 HP, different stats. Okay, stone skin buff for 2 turns at the start of the round with a 50% chance of it being a protected buff. The stone skin buff removes all debuffs from the recipient and makes them immune to all debuffs except bombs, which means you're gonna be susceptible to bombs when this happens. And the protection set is same thing, you can equip anywhere from 1 to 6 pieces, and there's going to be different buffs that you get for that. Protected buffs cannot be stolen or removed, and protected buffs will be indicated by yellow border in battle. You also see yellow outlines throughout the game. And that's not all. Hydra chests are also going to attain fragments for the new champ, Mythralla Lifebane. Mithralla's in the game and she looks amazing. So she's going to be a legendary support void champ for the Dark Elves. She's the only champ in the game that can harness the power of a brand new debuff called Petrification. Petrification debuff removes all buffs from the recipient that blocks them from receiving any more buffs while the debuff is active. They can still receive other debuffs. While the debuff is active, all incoming damage is reduced, except for damage from bombs, which is quadrupled. Champions under Petrification will skip their turn, and their skill cooldowns won't count down. So again, it's essentially being turned to stone. It's being frozen, right? You can't do anything. This unique debuff opens up a variety of new strategies. You're gonna have a lot of fun experimenting with Mythralla. Oh, and here's probably one of the biggest things. One last thing, we're instating a temporary silver cost reduction for 2 weeks. Having the amount of silver it takes to remove or swap artifacts and accessories to give you a chance to test out new gear and team combos for the Hydra. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, check out some more videos up here in the playlist on the top right.